Okay, our growing season's over for this year. You can see our tomato plants have all died back. So it's time to pull all the cages out, pull the landscape fabric up, and get some cover crop planted in here. I'm going to plant 20 different species of cover crop. So I'm preparing the soil for next year's garden. I'm going to do a top 5 mistakes that I made on this garden. This is our tomato grow at the end of our old chicken coop and chicken run. These plants made it to 12 foot tall this year before the cages collapsed and they fell over. So next year, I'm going to come up with a better design. I'm not going to use regular tomato cages. I'm going to use cattle panels and rebar, and I'm going to weld some rebar together and wire the cattle panels to them. So that way I can grow them on up. They probably would have reached 14 foot tall this year. But I made several mistakes with this grow this year, and I'm going to do a top 5 mistakes here in just a little bit on it. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all these cages out, pull all the poles out, put them up for the winter time, roll the landscape fabric up, put it up for the winter time, and go ahead and get a cover crop planted in here. It's October 17th today, so I only have about a month of growing before the daylight gets too short for the cover crop to grow. And then in the spring, the end of February and March, it'll start growing again once there's 10 hours of sunlight. So today we'll pull all this out and get it prepared for next year's garden. Well, I have everything tore out of the tomato run, got all the cages piled up. You can see the mess I have back there. So I've got to clean that mess up. I've got to take my landscape fabric, roll it up, put it up for the winter. But I opened up that side over there. I'm going to let my chickens just scratch around in here and eat today and possibly tomorrow. And once they scratch everything around, pick all they want, then I'll go in here with a hard rake and just level it. And then I'm going to plant my winter cover crop. Now the cover crop that I use are green manures that I use. I have 20 different species, over 20 different species that I use, and I'll put a list of them below in the description so that way you can see what I'm using. But I'm also doing videos in the main garden on each type of cover crop or green manure that I use and why I use them. So look for those videos. I'll put a couple links down below so you can see those. But I'll go ahead and get the winter cover crop growing in here, and I'll put the wire back up so my chickens can't get in there, and I'll leave it until about the end of February. Around the end of February, the cover crop should be grown up about 18 inches or so. I'll open this back up and let my chickens go in there and pick again, and then I'll plant a spring cover crop. And that'll grow until May when I plant the tomato plants, usually around the middle of May is when I put my tomato plants out, depending on the weather. But I'll do a spring cover crop also in here and let it grow. And what that's going to do is that's going to keep all the mycorrhizal fungi, the microbes in the soil and the bacteria happy all winter long. It'll feed them all winter long so they'll stay in the soil and stay happy. It'll also help attract earthworms. So that's what I'm going to do with this. And then next year, I'm going to try to grow a record tall tomato plants. This year I made it to 12 feet before they collapsed. Next year I'm going for my own personal record. I'm going to try foot tall tomato plants that's loaded with tomatoes. So watch for those videos come springtime. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it below, and thanks for watching.